What's up, folks? How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Let us get set up really quickly, and then we will jump into today's topic, which is step by step how to set up your business entity to qualify for EIN-only credit.
All right.
You
Few
ready?
more minutes. Few more minutes. Let's
All right, folks, let's turn down the vibes. And we welcome you once again to another wonderful Winning Wednesday. How are you today? I how are you today? I hope you're doing very well. I hope that you are showing gratitude for all of the many things that you may have in your world.
and how are you?
Doing well, of course, always trying to stay healthy, right? In this age as we start to transition from that warm, beautiful weather that we enjoyed, the air conditioner always having to be on, those 90 plus degree days.
Those beautiful days, the 90-degree weather days, for me
I'm
anyway.
sure you enjoyed those beautiful days of saying, "Oh, it's too hot. I'm not going outside." I wonder what you're gonna say in the middle of January. Oh, it's too cold. I'm not going out there. I
Yeah,
don't know how
yeah.
all of that is going to work. But once again, it's a wonderful winning Wednesday. I hope that each and every one of you are enjoying your day so far. So we just want to spend a little bit of time with you to continue to grow our community. One of the things that we talk about on this platform is one, building out your business. Um, One of the things that I've been working on, it's more of a tagline, is that there is data that supports 50% or more of businesses do not survive through do their fifth year. So the tagline that we're putting on that is businesses need to survive, thrive past year five. What do you think about that one, Eunice?
Yeah, I like that. It's I'm a numbers person. It's backed by numbers, so it makes sense to me. I think it speaks to a lot of entrepreneurs. We along our path, we meet a lot of entrepreneurs, both those who are just starting off and those who've been maybe past 5 years. And it speaks to both. I think even if you've gone past the year five, right, the bigger question is, are you barely surviving or are you thriving? So it speaks to everybody. As long as you're an entrepreneur, we want you to be in a position where you are growing, you are thriving, and you are reaching your goals versus barely surviving.
And the one thing that I believe that many people or many entrepreneurs or small business owners aren't doing is they aren't leveraging access to capital as a strategic weapon for their growth.
Mm,
For example, there are businesses that are seasonal. right? So, what happens with that business when you are in your down season? Do you stop looking for opportunities? In your down season, are you avoiding paying yourself because there are other expenses that are taking priority? So those are some of the things that we're going to tap into as to, well, this is why a business owner needs to have access to capital, because there are opportunities that will present themselves. Let's just say that you are in in the HVAC business, right? Use that as an example. However, you see that there is another HVAC company that has a long tenure, having been in business 10, 15, 20 years. However, that owner is looking to retire for whatever reason. And that owner is saying to you, I'm ready to sell my business, right? This is not a conversation that you've had before. But what happens if that opportunity should present itself to you? Are you going to go and empty out your bank account because they want some type of down payment? What's that going to have as an impact on your cash flows, etc.? How do you handle that scenario? Right? That's one question to ask. Can you meet opportunities as they come available to you? But also from a strategic aspect, and by strategic, I'm speaking to 3 to 5 years of planning, right?
Yeah.
Very difficult to do planning if the cash flows aren't right. So, if you are doing any strategic planning for your business, you should be, and I say should be, leveraging access to capital in order to meet those expansion and growth plans. Those are just two examples of how you can actually leverage access to business capital or business credit in order to be able to meet the needs of the business. I always say it's a very bad, very bad, very bad idea to have your business on a diet. You don't want to have your business on a diet. So let's jump into today's topic, step by step, how to establish business to qualify for EIN only credit. We actually spoke about this just a couple of moons back when we had talked about the very first thing that you have to do is you have to establish your entity, whether that's going to be an incorporation, whether that's going to be an LLC, S or C corp. You have to file that entity with the state corporation commission, is what we have in Virginia. It may be something titled different in your state, but it's the entity that handles filings, entity creations in your particular state. That's the first thing that you need to do. And you need to be very specific. One of the red flags that I often see people encounter is that they don't have the same spelling across the different governing bodies. So, for instance, if you're going to spell out street on your entity registration, you need to spell it out street across your IRS filing as well as on your bank accounts. What do you have you seen that before, Eunice?
Yeah, we were the typical example. I think at some point we spelled street out. Sometimes we just said ST. And when we embarked on this journey, that was one of the first lessons or so that we also learned. So this is not something that we are saying from reading books only. We also experienced that. And there was that discrepancy because there were those differences. So we had to agree how are we going forward, how do we want this presented, and we made sure that all the way from the documentation with our EIN number, that we were following the same exact same thing.
Mm. No, that was a lesson that we had to learn the hard way, right? But also, in having learned that lesson, we also needed to go through the experience of having to change that across the different entities, right? To make sure that everything is in alignment. And it's something that, what has been my experience, it's something that as you are in a hurry or a rush to set up the entity, you're not really paying a lot of attention to whether or not, if I spelled it out, something so simple as whether or not if I spelled it out as street versus the abbreviation of ST, right? Across the different platforms, was it the same? And it's not saying that it's a simple mistake to overcome. You're just moving at a velocity and you forget to make sure that it was recorded correctly. The other piece of it is that, yes, if it is recorded incorrectly across any of the entities, it's a simple matter to get it fixed by reaching out to the different bureaus or governing agencies and being able to correct that. If it is incorrect and you need assistance, we could actually help to provide you with guidance as to who you should call, how you should call, what you should say, because it can be a cumbersome process if you aren't familiar with the process. Anything to add on that, Eunice?
No, I think that's, we've covered that one thoroughly. We've, talked about it a few times. So, no.
All right. Mhm. The next piece of it is filing with the IRS, right? Filing with the IRS is the second step that you have to take in order to acquire your EIN number, right? And it's simple enough. You don't have to pay anyone to go and do this for you, right? You just go to irs.gov and follow the procedures and the steps in order to get that done. And within 15, 20 minutes, you should be able to have access to your EIN number. But of course, in a similar theme to what we have already been communicating, it's worth slowing down just a little bit to ensure that it is correctly or similar, exactly the same as what you've used for your state corporation commission.
Mhm.
And you contact the IRS just the same. I don't know what I'm gonna just quickly Google it. IRS change of address. If you need to make a change to your address, you go and you complete the IRS form 8822, which then allows for you to change the address. The process that I followed before, it was a snail mail type of deal. You had to fill out the form, sign the form, and send it in. It wasn't something that you were able to do online.
But still, nonetheless, it's easy enough for you to just get it done. When you think about long term and where you are looking to go, it's easy enough to be done, and it has to be done.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil. It's just something that has to be done, right? And you can correct it all on your own, and you don't have to spend resources to hire someone to do this work for you. You can actually do it yourself with, a little bit of guidance. I think maybe one of the things that we're going to do is create a blog, right? On create a blog with providing guidance on how to make these types of corrections if you if you incorrectly recorded it. So that's how you go to the IRS. And that's step number 2. Step number 3 is when you actually go to your bank. And it was stated earlier today to me that you should always bank with a community bank. And that's where you actually know your banker's telephone number and their name. I'm not going to mention the name of the entity because I don't have personal firsthand experience with them. However, what I can say is that if you don't have the cell phone number of your banker, you are most likely banking with the wrong institution, right? I was having a conversation with my colleague in BNI, Vicky, with BCT, and she was just telling me that the majority of her customers have her direct cell phone number and they can give her a call at any time when they have an issue related to the bank. So I thought that that was a novel approach to it. But also, what Vicky said is that whenever she has to submit an application for approval, she also puts in the reason why she believes that that application should be approved. And it's a little bit
Good.
different than when you are working in a space where, you're with a national bank, right? You submit your application and you really don't know why it was denied for the most part, because when it comes to business credit, there is no Fair Credit Reporting Act in this space. So if you get denied, no one is under legislation in order to tell you exactly why you've been denied. You just have to swing into the dark. But that's also one of the reasons why one of the things that we do here at VIP Business Credit is we tell you, right, why don't you spend 30 minutes with us and we will pull your business credit report
Hmm.
and use that 30 minutes time to tell you exactly what is being reported there. What trade lines do you have reporting? Are there any errors on your business credit report that need to be corrected? And that is a reason why you are being hampered in being able to get access to the capital that you need, right? I say, why shoot blind for something that's so critical to your business? Your business is your baby for the most part. So why shoot blind into the dark when you could actually expose it with light?
That's right.
No, we've been
And
doing go ahead.
no, I was just adding on to what you're saying that if you have if you have an opportunity to potentially increase your favors of getting that line of credit or that funding, why wouldn't you? If there's an opportunity for you to make a couple of changes or to review a few things, and that allows you or that increases your chances of being favorable when you now present your documentation for financing, why wouldn't you? I would.
Well, I would as well, right? I would as well. But one of the things that I don't want to take for granted is believing that common sense is common to everyone.
Mm.
I think that's when I forget sometimes that everyone doesn't have my approach to the world, and that I need to sometimes take off my hat with my experience and put on the hat of someone else and start to become that curious 3-year old, right? That's one of the things that they taught us when we were in coaching school, is to be that curious 3-year old and ask questions, but why are you doing it that way? But you want to have it with a bit of compassion, right? Because you don't want that other person to feel as though you are in any way belittling them because you know something that they don't know. So you want to have a level of empathy and compassion as you're asking that question. So can you tell me, can you help me to understand why it is that you're doing it that way? And see what the answer is.
Yeah, definitely.
So shout out to all my community bankers out there, right? We're trying to send and show you all the love that we can. Definitely sending a shout out to my BNI sister, Vicky out there at BCT Bank. We love you. And the next piece of this, Eunice, is where I believe the rubber hits the road, right? I believe that the rubber hits the road, and doing all of this is something that we did. We stopped at step number 3. We opened up a business checking account with a local community bank. They've since been purchased, right? But we opened up the business bank account, and we thought that we were good, and I think we thought that we were good for several years until we really tried to start building and growing our business, and we didn't want to use personal resources to bootstrap the business anymore. And that's when our journey transitioned over to where we are today, is that we went to apply for credit in the name of the business, and we were approved for a ridiculously low amount. And we were like, we don't need this little, but we weren't applying for credit because we had an urgent need. We were applying for credit because we wanted to have access to a line of credit should we find other opportunities, and we can do some planning around that versus planning on a diet, right? We
Mm-hmm.
had to do some planning around access to capital, etc. So we stopped at creating the business account with the community bank. The next step is the one that is absolutely critical, right? And that is going to Dun and Bradstreet and creating your Duns number. And we shared this the last time, right? And I'm going to put it into the chat again, but it's basically how to get your Duns number, right? And I see that now, Dun and Bradstreet, they are offering an expedited service, just because Dun and Bradstreet, in typical fashion, will use the mail in order to be able to get you your Duns number. I believe the new service gets you to you within 8 days. So I guess that they're still using mail. It's just that they're going to do it. They're going to probably expedite it through like a FedEx or something like that. So let me
But
put
either
that.
way, I think because that's 8 days, and then the regular is what, about 14 days?
Yeah, if you go the regular free route, and as a small business owner, I'm pretty sure you have your eye on conserving access to resources, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So what does that mean? That means that you don't want to have to spend for things that you don't have to spend for. If
yeah.
you do the proper planning, you will give yourself enough time. You will give yourself enough time to have it in 14 days. Yes, it is 14 days, but it isn't that long of a leeway that you need, right?
I agree.
So once you have gotten to that point, that's when you are working with vendors, and you're going to try to expedite the process or accelerate the process, and that's where we come in. You're going to try to accelerate that process and get through those tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, as quickly as possible, because we all want to get to access to tier 3 and tier 4, because
Mhm.
that's when we're going to be able to apply for lines of credit, loans, etc. I'm a big fan of having lines of credit because you're not paying for capital that you're not actually utilizing. As you tap into the line, right, that's when the interest starts. As you pay down the line, right, you're no longer paying interest on the amount of money that is not out. To me, that's like the best thing in the world, right? But in order to get started, right, I love having access to credit cards, right? But we like to have access to the credit cards that allow for you to, we like having access to the credit cards that have rewards attached to them, because everybody needs a vacation. Everybody needs a vacation. And if you're spending to support your business, if you're spending to support your family, why not have, a credit card that has rewards and could actually give you something back for doing business with them? So after you have gotten your Dun Bradstreet number, the next thing that you're going to be doing is working with vendors who are reporting to the credit reporting agencies, right? You're looking to work with vendors who are reporting to the credit reporting agencies, and you're looking to establish trade lines. So you're going to be at tier 1 when you start. 3 trade lines gets you promoted to tier 2. 6 trade lines get you promoted to tier 3, and 9 trade lines get you reporting on tier 4. And that's where you want to be, right? That's where you really want to be. That's where I would call it the honeypot is. So if you can do that, I know we spoke about that really quickly over the last couple of minutes, but I know I took a process that is rather difficult, and I oversimplified it. But that's where we close out today's session by saying, if you do not know where you're going in this particular direction, right? We're offering a pull of your Experian business credit report and 30 minutes of consultation where we will walk you through that credit report and tell you what we see. And we follow that up with recommendations on the next steps that you should move forward with in order to increase your business credit profile. At the end of the day, it's ensuring that you have access to capital on the best terms and for the highest amounts, right? It's not that complicated. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple, because it's going to get complex all on its own.
I like that. It's not complicated. Once you know and once you get the hang of it, and once you do the necessary work that needs to be done, then you can sit back and enjoy having those lines of credit and watch your business just grow. But you have to take this step first.
Yeah. You got to plant the seed and then water it. I call what we're talking about today is watering the seed so that eventually there will be a harvest, right? We're in the harvesting business right now, right? And I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the old term that I have. The first thing that you want to do as a small business is survive. Once you have realized that you can survive, step number 2 is to thrive. Not just survive, but to thrive. And since 50% of businesses aren't making it to their 5th-year anniversary. The next goal is to survive past year 5. Survive, thrive past year 5. That's what we got cooking over here under the VIP umbrella. Eunice, what would you add?
I think you've said it all. It's simple like that. It's actionable. You literally have the blueprint of what you need to do. What's left is for you to just take action.
Take action.
Yep.
Why do all of this hard work? Why go out, gather a whole bunch of knowledge if that knowledge is not going to be utilized?
Yep.
So
I agree.
I think that's where we can close out for today, right? We wanted to make sure that you had a wonderful winning Wednesday, or as the Budweiser commercial used to say, hump day. You made it through to Wednesday. You got 2 more days until you can get to rest and relax on a Saturday and Sunday. We want to wish you all very well. Continue to take care of yourself, right? And we'll touch base again next week on another wonderful Winning Wednesday.
See
Anything
you
else
all
before we
next
go?
week.
All right.
See you.
Have a
Oh,
good one.
what are we talking about next week?
Ah, great catch, right? Because I was already moving on to the next one. Next week, we're going to be talking about, well, actually, Eunice is going to be talking about, she's an expert in this domain, but it's going to be how the whole life insurance versus business credit, which is the right, which is right for your cash flow needs. I have another quote that I love to use, and that quote is that cash flow is king, business credit is queen, right? So my queen is going to actually lead the show next week. I'm going to fight myself to keep my mouth closed, right? As we go on
We
that
shall
portion of the,
see.
we shall see.
Shall see.
I
Yeah.
will I will practice discipline and being quiet. All right.
All
We're
right.
out of here,
See you
folks.
next week.